Welcome everybody to the Meher, Lord Meher book reading and Happy New Year. Thank you for listening. During most of January 1924, Baba remained in relative quietude and aloofness. Only Behramji and Gustadji were staying with the master in the Bharucha building. But on 20th January, Baba called all the Mandali from Pune, Lonavala, and Ahmednagar to Bombay. At the gathering, he told them, only those who are willing and ready to dedicate themselves to me fully for an indefinite period will be able to stay with me. A week before, on the 14th, Baba had written to Ghani, never for a moment think that I will ever forget you and the work that I am bent upon for you. Though you have not understood me till now, a day will come when you will thoroughly understand your greatest friend in this world. In Bombay, speaking to Ghani and Ramju in private, Baba said, whatever hopes and promises I held out to you to be fulfilled by February 28th, you may now consider them unfulfilled. If you think that the last 2 years with me were a waste of time and in vain, and if you now no longer take me for that, for what you believed me to be for so long, then I can only say I'm sorry and ask for your forgiveness. Still, if you wish to remain with me, you may do so for only an indefinite period and without any previous conditions or expectations. However, if you think I have beguiled and deceived you, you are free to express yourselves and rebuke me as you wish. Baba further told them, if you want, you may keep your connection with me by remaining at home and carrying out your worldly duties, but it can only be done by carrying out spiritual instructions. For Ghani and Ramju, it was not a question of faith in the master. They did not consider that their 2 years with him had been in vain, but both were married and had children. They knew that Baba intended to travel to Persia, and for family reasons, they decided it was better to remain at home in Lonavala and obey Baba's orders from there. When informed of the decision, Baba commented, if you trust me and if you believe that I am the one for whom you have love and faith, then I can definitely say that in this life and in this body, you can be as certain of spiritual awakening as day follows night. Whether you remain with me, away from me, or even against me. Baba then inquired of Ghani and Ramju, after I return from Persia, I may call you to stay with me for a month or two. Will you do that? At that time, I will explain to both of you about the inner secret, which I have promised to explain to only a selected few. Both replied, we wish to be with you, but allow us to go home when necessary. Baba agreed to this, but added, from now on, I will not be responsible for anything that has to do with either of you. Baba broke his prolonged fast on Sunday, 20th January 1924, and began eating solid food once every day. As mentioned throughout his life, the Mandali were to observe that all Baba's actions contained hidden significance that affected the lives of everything in creation. Sometimes the reasons for the master's moods, seclusions, or fasts would become apparent, or they would coincide with certain world events which the Mandali would come to know of later when they read the newspapers. For example, when Baba was in a bad mood or shouting at someone, the next day they would read of some disaster or natural calamity, such as train crash, an ocean liner sinking, or a great flood or drought somewhere in the world. In the case of Meher Baba's breaking his fast on 20th January, the following day, Russian communist leader Vladimir Vladimir Lenin passed away. Over 9 I don't know,
900,000.
900,000 people, thank you, came to Lenin's body during the 4 days and nights that it lay in state. On the 22nd, Memo, Masyaji, Daula Masi, and most likely Naja, accompanied by Babu Cyclewala, arrived from Pune at the Bharucha building. Finding her son very thin and weak, Shireen Mai rebuked him. Mehrwan, why are you starving yourself? Are you mad? Laughing, Baba replied, Mother, the whole world is mad. Not I. I am the healer of the mad. Memo remarked caustically. Is that how you say it? Caustically? Cautious. Marvin, can you pronounce that?
I think it's caustically.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. When you fast like a madman, how can you hope to help the mad? I have to fast in order to make them well. Forget about the mad and go on eating, his mother exhorted him. To cure them, I have taken birth through your womb. If I don't play my part, your name will be cursed throughout history. Hearing this, Memo could not suppress a smile. On Sunday, 27th January, a Qawwali program was held in the Manzile Neem compound featuring Yasin Qawwal, who had sung for Baba several times before. The program lasted through the day and Baba thoroughly enjoyed the singing. Wajifdar brought food from Irani mansion, which Baba served to all those present. Another program was held the following Sunday, which Asma attended. Baba fasted again on Tuesday, 31st January. He had said that from 1st of February, he would start eating regularly, 3 times a day, but he changed his mind yet again and continued eating only one meal every 24 hours. During January, Baba's elder brother Jamshed wrote regarding Baba Jan's recent ill health and restless mood. Baba Jan was usually of radiant, vibrant health. Despite her age of well over 100 years, strangely, Baba's delicate health in Bombay seemed to coincide with Baba Jan's health in Pune. The Mandali observed that many of their symptoms were similar and that as long as Baba Jan did not recover, Baba's health also did not improve. Narayan Maharaj, whom most of the Mandali had only heard of, was visiting Bombay. On 2nd February, Baba sent Daulat Mai, Khorshid, Mehera, and all the men, except for nervous for Narayan's darshan. This was the first occasion that some of the Mandali met the perfect master. When Gustaji entered the hall and approached Narayan, the Sadguru and his Mandali stood up, giving the clear impression that they were paying respect to Meher Baba through Gustaji. Mehra had been instructed to give Narayan Maharaj a booklet about Baba, which she did. Maharaj looked at the printed photograph of Baba on the cover and remarked, "Yes, I know him. I know Meher Baba very well." During the 1920s, Mahatma Gandhi emerged as the foremost political leader of India and had been arrested by the British in March 1922 for his anti government civil disobedience agitations. Baba was to have much personal contact with Mahatma Gandhi over the years. When Baba had been given in Karachi the previous November, he had remarked to the Mandli, "Gandhi will be freed from the prison soon." And as he had foretold on 5th of February 1924, Mahatma Gandhi was released from jail. Baba sent a letter to Rustam in Ahmednagar telling him to send a copy of Upasni Maharaj's biography in Gujarati to Gandhi and to inform him about the severe austerities and fasts which Upasni Maharaj had undergone. Rustam did so, and the result of this first contact was evident later. Because of Baba's upcoming visit to Persia, scheduled for 14th February, his 30th birthday was celebrated on Tuesday, 12th February 1924, instead of on the 19th, which was the actual date that year according to the Zoroastrian calendar. Marvin, would you like to read? Thank you.
Large canopy was erected at Barucha building, and many followers arrived from different places. The Mandalay were so busy that they did not even have time for morning tea. The pavilion was splendidly decorated by Naval, and Baba was profusely garlanded with flowers. The music and singing entertainments were also a grand success. As these ceremonies were taking place, there was some confusion regarding bringing the food from Irani Mansion. Baba stopped the program and, openly irritated, walked to the house and lifted the big vessels of food on his shoulders, bringing them to Barucha building himself. Despite the Mandali's plea to let them carry the pots of food, Baba refused and waved them away irritably. Walking along the road, the master did the work of a humble coolie on his own birthday. The guests who saw him carrying the heavy load were astonished. Munshiji and several other Muslim followers had left Barucha building, afraid that the master's mood had been irreparably spoiled. But a short time later, Baba was driven to Munshiji's house on Charney Road to bring them back. The atmosphere returned to normal as everyone joyfully partook of Baba's birthday feast. That afternoon, the master delivered a discourse on spirituality to those who had come to the celebration. One Irani man was so impressed by the discourse that he promised to stop drinking liquor and give up other bad habits, vowing to remain only on bread and water. Several days later, when Baba came to know of this, he prevailed upon the man to resume his regular diet except for the alcohol. Upasni Maharaj had imprisoned himself inside a bamboo cage for the past year, but news came from Sikori that Maharaj had come out of the cage on February 12th, the same day on which Baba's birthday was observed. It was therefore a day doubly joyous, and Baba's spoiled mood may have had some inner connection with Maharaj's sudden activity in Sikori. The cage, physically limiting Maharaj's movements, secretly held an ocean of bliss. but none could see the waters of that ocean released in honor of Merwan's birth. Baba had been planning the trip to Persia for some weeks, and I need to scroll. More of the Mandali had rejoined him at Barucha building. 8 men had been selected to join him on the journey. Ali Sr., Baidul, Baramji, Ustaji, Masaji, Nervous, Padre, and Vajifdar. On 29 January, those who were to travel to Persia had gone to the Persian consulate with their respective passports. The consul asked them questions in Persian, and one of the men replied in Persian, "I am sorry, sir, but we do not speak Persian." The consul was amused and surprised to hear this reply, and he unhesitatingly endorsed everyone's passport. Afterward, Baba discussed their upcoming trip and decided that they should proceed to Iran via Bandar Abbas instead of Baghdad, because travel expenses would be less costly by that route. Following this decision, an addendum to the official agreement was made on 15 February and signed by the Mandali on stamped paper. It read, "We, the undersigned, hereby declare and agree that we are going to Persia of our own free will and accord. We further hold ourselves responsible for any mishap that may occur, whether physical, mental, or financial, under any circumstances. That is, Meher Baba is in no way responsible for any consequences of the journey or otherwise during the time we are with him." The route was changed again, however, and the decision was made to travel through Baghdad. It was also determined that only 8 men were to accompany Baba. The other Mandali were to remain at their respective homes and were to rejoin him after his return from Persia. Naval had already purchased the steamship tickets via Bandar Abbas. It proved to be a difficult task for him to have them changed. However, he was able to do so without incurring any extra expense. However, the extra cost of sending telegrams to different people in Persia turned out to be tremendous. While staying in the Barucha building, Baba ordered the Mandali to fast for 24 hours on 3 occasions. His birthday was celebrated again on Tuesday, February 19th, 1924, since the trip to Persia had been postponed on one more time from the 14th to the 22nd of February. Occasionally, Baba would go to Irani mansion, especially to see Meher, the rose of his garden. He also visited Naval and Bujar's homes. On February 22nd, Baba awakened the Mandali unexpectedly at 3 a.m. and asked them, should we leave for Persia today or not? Baramji had been suffering from fever for several days, and all favored postponing the trip. But Baba wanted to leave and demanded, we must go today, so get ready. The luggage was dispatched to the docks in a bullock cart, and the men left in much haste. They boarded the SS Varela at 7:30 a.m. and departed from Bombay Harbor 2 hours later. Next page. Baba was returning to the land of his ancestors and appeared excited about seeing Persia. Memo, Gulmai, and other ladies, along with the Mandali from Kasba Peth, also came to see them off. To console those who were not going with him, he lovingly embraced each one. Some felt he was taking their very hearts away with him, and they wept as he waved goodbye. In the interim, Ghani, Ramju, Rustam, and Barso were to await Baba's return at their homes. As instructed by Baba, Daulat Mai and Meher also returned to their home in Pune. Since Ramju would not be accompanying them, Ali began writing diary notes of the trip. Once they were settled on board the ship, Masaji cooked for the men and prepared one vegetable dish for Baba. Their meals were simple, consisting of a potato dish, bread, and tea. Baramji was still not well, and the constant rocking of the ship worsened his condition. Ali, too, suffered from seasickness and could not control his vomiting. Baba would nurse Ali and Baramji, urging them to try to eat. It was a difficult journey for them. When the boat docked at Karachi for a brief period, Pilamai and other devotees were present with flowers and food, and Baba was received with great reverence. Ramji and Ali remained indisposed and continued vomiting. Later on board the ship, there was a discussion between two sects of Muslims, the Shiites and the Sunnis. Footnote says all Muslims believe there is but one God, Allah, and that Muhammad is his prophet. But when Muhammad died in 1632 AD, he left no obvious successor to serve as Imam, spiritual leader. Most of his followers accepted Abu Bakr, his father-in-law, as Imam. A few, however, were convinced that Muhammad had designated as his successor Ali, the husband of his daughter Fatima. In time, the former group favoring Abu Bakr called themselves Sunnis. Today, they account for about 90% of the world's 800 million Muslims. The minority following splintered into subsets who believe the leadership would derive from descendants of Ali and Fatima, and they are known as Shiites. A quarrel resulted, and each side began angrily vilifying the other's religious leaders. The irony was that between the opposing groups were two brothers-in-law, one a Shiite and one a Sunni. The Shiite brother-in-law was greatly drawn to Baba, and during the argument turned to him and asked, "To what religion do you belong, sir?" Smiling, Baba replied, "To me, all religions are one." After further conversation with the master, the Shiite man told Baba that if his sect believed in guru-disciple relationships, he would surely have accepted him as his master. After this, the argument between the brothers-in-law became so heated that they swore they would part company in Baghdad, where they had originally planned to begin their pilgrimage together to Mecca. The sea was calm as the boat steamed into the Persian Gulf, but a freezing, shiver-inducing cold storm swept over them after leaving the port of Bahrain. By the time they reached the port of Bushehr, Baba, who until then had been quite well, also suffered nausea. Okay, do you want to assign someone else to read now?
Yeah, next on the list is Elizabeth. Would you like to read, please? Thank you. Unmute yourself.
Okay, but I have this thing making noise in the background. Can you hear it?
We hear you well. Just read, Elizabeth. Thank you.
Yeah, it's
Then,
not. We don't pick it up.
Okay. Then Banjadar too started feeling. Is that where we are? Okay.
Yes.
Started feeling nauseous and vomited. No sooner had they anchored at Bushehr than a rainstorm broke with crashing thunder. The Persian coolies picked up the group's heavy baggage, while Baidul tipped them with bread and onions, which they seemed to relish. While hauling the baggage, they would utter, Ya Ali, in honor of the Almighty, much to the amusement of the Mandali. Baba and the Mandali stayed at Ghulam Hussain Lodi's house in Bushehr. Their baggage was brought by mule, the most common means of transportation in Iran at the time. A Primus stove was lit and Baba warmed himself near it, for he was shivering from the extreme cold. Nervous, brought charcoal and lit hearths to heat the room. Strong winds were blowing and the cold atmosphere was gloomy and uncongenial. Nervous brought supplies from the market and Masaji cooked a meal. Water for drinking had to be brought as there was a great scarcity. But the water which was purchased contained maggots and looked so milky that most people would not even have washed their feet in it. The Mandali had to walk.
A little bit slower, please.
Oh, hi, Mahu. Sure.
Hi.
But the water which was purchased contained maggots and looked so milky that most people would not even have washed their feet in it. The Mandali had to walk to the seashore to wash the cooking utensils. Although the majority of the Mandali were unwell, Baba decided to proceed to Shiraz, famous for its garden and the tomb of Baba's favorite poet, Hafiz. A truck was hired at 400 rupees for the journey, but Padri fell ill and the next day with a high fever and felt too weak to travel. At the same time, when news was brought that a ship had arrived from Baghdad on its way to Bombay, Baba suddenly decided to return to India by that ship. This change of plans shocked the men. He instructed Baidul and Baramji to disembark at Badar Abbas and proceed to their respective homes in Iran, while the rest of the Mandali would disembark at Karachi with Baba. After only a few days in Persia, they boarded the cargo ship Baroja and left Bushir. Baba and the Mandali would always travel by the lowest class, and accordingly, they occupied the deck. Most of the other passengers on board were illiterate Arab tribesmen. There was not much room for the passengers because the cargo ship was carrying cows, goats, chickens, donkeys, and horses. The animals' dung caused a terrible stench. The Arabs daily slaughtered goats and chickens on the deck for their meals, and their unhygienic habits shocked the Mandali. Can you move it up? Thanks. Let's see. On one occasion, an arrogant Arab kicked nervous bedroll, throwing it aside rather than ask him politely to move it. Baba quickly stopped Nervous from confronting the man. On another occasion, one Arab abused his fellow Muslim for not offering namaz, prayer, with his face toward the west. However, the next morning, the same Arab was seen offering namaz as soon as he was out of bed, without first washing his hands and feet, which was customary. On the way to Bandar Abbas, Baba unexpectedly broached the subject of halting there and going back to Persia. At the men's immediate discouragement of his idea, he expressed surprise at their lack of enthusiasm. He wanted all of them to disembark with Baidul and Baramji. But when they reached Bandar Abbas and were about to be ferried to the shore, Padri again had an alarming temperature. So their plan was changed and only Baidul and Baramji disembarked. The ship stayed anchored for about 2 hours, during which time Padri gradually felt better. 15 minutes before the steamer was to depart, Baba had a ferry boat hired to take them ashore. Again, Padri suddenly came down with fever, and it was finally decided definitely to return to India. Arrangements were made to leave Padri in Karachi with Nervous, who was to look after him until he was well enough to travel. Some Nepalese Gurkhas had come on board the ship. They were friendly and admired Baba's features. At their casual suggestion to visit Nepal, Baba agreed and decided to proceed to Kathmandu. After passing through the ports of Lingay, Hinjam Island, and Muscat, the cargo ship reached Karachi on 7th March, 1924. Bajifdar accompanied Nervous and Padri to Pilamai's house. Asaji went to hire a bullock cart to take their baggage to the railway station, for Baba had decided to depart immediately by train to Nepal. A tonga was brought instead, and the luggage was taken to the station, where Baba and the men rested in a waiting room. Bailey most likely met Baba here and was instructed to return to Pune and await further orders from him. Vajifdar returned at 10 o'clock p.m., and they soon went to sleep. Yet each man had to take turns on watch by Baba for an hour, as well as to safeguard the luggage against theft. They were carrying sacks of grain and rice with them throughout the journey, and the responsibility of looking after the food fell on Usaji and Bajifdar. In the morning, they bathed at the public water tap in the train station. To ensure privacy, they hung curtains of blankets on all four sides, forming a makeshift shower stall around the tap. According to Baba's orders, no coolies were to be hired. Therefore, Masaji and Bajistar had to carry all the luggage onto the train. Their belongings were heavy and cumbersome, but they managed to load everything on board in time to catch the Keta mail train with the assistance of Nervous, who had come to see them off. Later, during the change of trains at Hyderabad station, Masaji lost his betting roll. This mishap resulted in a heated quarrel between Gustaji and him. Baba afterwards pacified Masaji by lending his own sheets and a woolen blanket to him. Bajifdar was assigned the duty of general manager in Baranji's absence, and he had to purchase their tickets, arranging for the food, and make certain that the luggage was properly loaded. Along with the headache of being the manager, Bajifdar also had to endure Baba's constant arrows, his teasing and criticisms. Baba had singled him out for goading, which proved an additional mental burden for Bajifdar. On the way to Nepal, the train stopped at Lucknow, where Baba went to the town to buy new sandals. Not finding any he liked, he returned to the station. He was constantly wearing the Kamli woolen coat given by Yeshwant Rao and the sandals made by Kanhaba Rao. For some unexplained reason, he would not wear any other coat or sandals. Stopped at Raksal on the Nepal border frontier, Baba and the men were refused permission to cross the border. They remained in Raksal and sent telegrams to different government authorities requesting visas to enter the country. They were informed that if they had asked for permission a few days earlier, they would easily have obtained it because of a religious fair being held at the time in Nepal by a congregation of Tibetan Buddhists. But now that the fair was over, foreign travelers were not being permitted inside the country. Only those engaged in business, trade, or some official government work were given consent. Should I keep reading? Giving up the idea of a journey to Nepal.
Oh, wait, there was one more paragraph on that last page.
Yeah, it started with giving up. Giving up the idea of a journey to Nepal, Baba led them in to visit the tomb of Kabir at Maghar, instead remaining there for 2 days. A renowned 15th century poet and perfect master, Kabir grew up in a Muslim weaver family, but some say he was really the son of a Brahmin widow and was adopted by a childless couple. Hence, he was revered by both Muslims and Hindus. But when Kabir died, his Hindu and Muslim followers argued over his last rites. Muslims bury their dead, whereas Hindus are cremated. One popular legend says that as the truth groups were fighting around his coffin, when they finally opened the coffin, they found Kabir's body missing, and in its place were flowers. So 2 tombs were built for Kabir side by side, a samadhi where Hindus worshipped and a dargah where Muslims pay homage. Each following believes each following believes that theirs is the real grave. Baba paid his respects at both places. After visiting the shrines dedicated to Kabir, Baba had about 50 poor persons fed in Magar, which lessened the burden of their grain stocks. All the rest of the surplus provisions which they had carried with them from India for their journey in Persia were distributed among the poor, and the large empty jars were given to the station master. During their stay at Magar, a conflict arose between a group of wandering sadhus. Baba intervened and stopped the quarrel. He explained to them about the way of life they should be leading if they were real sadhus and had renounced the ephemeral world. Soon after, Baba and the 4 remaining Mandali, Adi, Gustaji, Musaji, and Vajifdar, left Magar for Kanpur in Tongas and stayed at the Dharmshala there. They bathed in the Ganges River and later fed a few more poor persons along the banks. When they boarded a train at Kanpur, Baba instructed Vajifdar to return to Bombay, Masaji to go to Pune, and Adi and Gustaji to Ahmednagar. Lost the spot.
Pointer.
I'm looking for the spot. But okay. Baba told Gustaji and Adi to select a place within a radius of 5 or 6 miles from Sikori, where he could stay with the Mandali. The 4 men proceeded to their destinations, and Baba left the train at the first Atarsi station, alone. Baba was so tired that as soon as he had set foot on the station platform, he lay down, resting his head on his bedding. A ticket collector was watching from a distance and, becoming suspicious, shouted, "Arrest that man! He is a ticketless traveler." In an intimidating manner, he approached Baba, who pulled out his ticket and said, "Here is my ticket, sir." At that moment, the man was stunned by the glow he saw on Baba's face. He bowed to him and left Baba alone.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Jay, would you like to go next? Thank you. Okay, since Mahu, would you like to
Yes.
read now? Thank you.
Sorry, who did you ask?
I asked Jay, but I can't hear him. So I
Yeah, he's
asked Mahu.
probably not tuned in. So who would you like to read now?
Yes,
Yeah.
I can do. For several days, Baba roamed about Itarsi, contacting saints and perhaps some masks. The full details of his solitary wandering are not known, but it was evident that for his inner work, he had stayed behind in Itarsi, and that he wished his movements to be kept secret. This was perhaps the only time during Meher Baba's adulthood that he ever traveled alone without any of the Mandali with him. After disappearing for 1 week, Baba returned to Mehrabad at the end of March 1924 and gathered the Mandali once again near him. The Kaspa Path Mandali, which is Arjun, Chaudhary, Kandiram, Vishnu, and others were also called from Pune to stay at Mehrabad. The avatar's inner work is on a universal scale, and it is not possible to understand a particular action of his, any particular action of his, including all his changes in travel plans. The avatar's every action brings millions of unseen results. Meher Baba would, at times, talk to someone, but another person listening would feel that his words were directed at him. The extent of the unseen force of his actions can never be imagined. Perhaps one aspect of the journeying to Persia and all the changes of plans had to do with the inner work Baba was doing at that time regarding the Persian people and the country. Parenthesis, Baba hinted as much as the time to the Mandali. As much at the time to the Mandali. Meher Baba's presence there actually seeded a change in the consciousness of the people. After Baba's visit to Persia, a change to the better swept over the country. After a year and a half, Reza Khan ascended the throne as the Shah or king, and the country was, for a time, greatly benefited by his coming to power. Also, after Baba's journey, the religious animosity and persecution of minorities, such as Zoroastrians, disappeared, and the country gradually began to progress toward modernization. Some of the structures at Mehrabad were in a state of ruin. So during April 1924, Baba assigned the Mandali the work of repairing them, and in some cases, demolished them and leveling the ground. For this work, they used gamelas, rounded iron pans, used for carrying earth and stones. Thus, the work came to be referred to fictitiously as Gamela Yoga. During this labor phase, a typical day began at 5 a.m. All were required to offer prayers according to their respective religion until 7 a.m. From 7 a.m. to 8 a.m., breakfast of milkless tea and millet bakri was served. The Gamela Yoga work lasted from 8 to 11 a.m. It was summertime, and due to the hot weather, from 11 to 3 there was an afternoon recess for a bath, lunch, rest, and laundry. For an hour and a half, from 3 to 4:30 p.m., the men were to repeat a one-line prayer given by Baba for 7 names of God: Khuda, Paramatma, Allah, Ahura Mazda, Ram, Yazdan, Hu. This was to be preceded and followed by the poem called The Horizon of Love, Prem Nasima, which Baba had composed at Manzil-e-Mim. Footnote.
The full text of Prem Nasima is your.
Oh, okay. From 4:30 to 6 p.m., The men again attended to their various assigned duties. Musaji would cook for most of the mandali, and Chowdhury would cook separately for the Hindus. Dinner was served at 6 p.m., following by Baba giving a discourse or singing a song. By 10 p.m., the men would retire. Those who were physically weak or in poor health had to either draw water from the well and bring to the post office building or cook and clean. Baba instructed them to eat a few almonds every day to build up their strength. The Gamela Yoga work was quite strenuous. The Mandali were mainly assisting a mason who had been hired to construct a small private stone room for Baba, according to his specifications. The men prepared the mud and lime mixture for the mason, catered stone, carted stones, and carried dirt to the site, urging that the room be completed as soon as possible. Baba himself lent a hand in the work. Urging that the room be completed as soon as possible, Baba himself lent a hand to work. When Baba had first arrived in Arangan during May 1923, the Mohammedan saint Gilori Shah was still alive, although his tomb at Mehrabad had been completed. By the time Baba returned to the saint's wishes, his funeral procession on 16th of January ended at Mehrabad. When the saint was buried, there was a dispute among his followers as to which rites to perform, Hindu or Muslim. But someone at the funeral settled the dispute by quoting what Glory Shah had once said, quote, "For the fakir, there is no sect or religion." Thus, the saint was buried without ceremony as he had wished. Glory Shah himself had kept his coffin ready, on which he had inscribed, "He who has died before his death is alive." Footnote.
जिंदा है वही जो मरने के आगे मर गया.
Okay. Gulmai's husband, Khan Sahib, paid the funeral expenses for Glory Shah. After a year, a wooden canopy was built over the saint's marble tomb. The private room for Baba's personal use was constructed within a week, not far from Glory Shah's tomb. Lord Brahm's birthday was celebrated on Sunday, 13 April 1924. A small mandap or canopy was erected opposite the newly constructed room, and many followers from Pune and Ahmednagar arrived. Khan Sahib, Faridun Masa, and Barsov arranged to bring a bhajan singer named Bikolia and his group from Kasbah Pass. The Mandali at Mehrabad had been ordered to observe a 24-hour fast from the 12th of April. A 2-hour program of bhajan singing was held, and afterwards, Bikolia recited stories of Ram. A simple meal of rice and dal was served. Afterward, the mandali were busy filling water pots, cleaning vessels, and preparing enough food for a mass feeding the next day. The master gave a short discourse in the evening. The essential message was, the perfect master is God in human form. One should think twice before being in the company of a Sadguru. And once one has joined and stayed with him, one should completely surrender to him for the rest of one's life. Baba then concluded with the statements about Mehrabad. Once I settle here, the atmosphere of this place will be greatly heightened spiritually and materially. I have a great mission to perform in my life for the benefit of humanity, the outcome of which will be observed in the near future. At 7 in the evening, a curtain program, which is stories of God accompanied by song and music, was delivered by Hindu Kirtankar. The singing lasted until late in the night. On the morning of 14 April, Baba hastened out of the post office building, shouting to the mandali, quote, I couldn't sleep for a moment last night. I could not sleep for a particular reason. He then gathered the mandali and explained, Kandiram asked me to train fare to return to Pune. His mother is ill, so I gave him money, but now I'm making this rule. I will never give a pie or cent to anyone, nor will I ask anyone else to give money for any such reason. If anyone's relative is seriously ill, he can go on foot. But if he does otherwise at anyone's expense, he is no longer mine, and that person will be considered to have left me. So whoever wants to be relieved of my company should say so here and now, and I will furnish his return journey to his respective place and set him free.
Thank you, Mahu. Meher Daluwala next. Rosalie, could you go next? Thank you.
In response, all agreed to stay with Baba according to his conditions. On the same day at 11 a.m., the Bhandara mass feeding started and continued until evening. Nearly 1,000 poor and destitute persons were fed. The food was cooked by Chaudhry with the other mandalis. Assistants Rustams brought up a subject that he considered important, which resulted in a meeting of the mandali, and several guests were also called. Abdullah Jafar was made the chairman, and as there was no chair, he was given a bucket to sit on. The others sat around him on the ground. Rustam proposed that since Meher Baba was recognized as the spiritual charge man, uh, it's gone up. Proposed position, yeah, okay, of Hazrat Baba Jan and Upasni Maharaj, he should have a separate symbol representing his position. Some proposed wearing a different shirt, a distinctive cap, or some other form of dress. At this point, Ghani found fault with the chairman, Bucket Man, as he called him, and Abdullah was deposed. Ghani was then made chairman and gave him a gamela to sit on. Most objective to having a symbol for the master to do did not like the idea and said, "We are not a society." He added, "Any mark of distinction would rob us of our independence and would prove a binding to restrict our minds. Therefore, the proposal was dismissed and the meeting ended. But due to some laxness on the part of both Chairman Baba Mir Abdullah and Ghani hold their ears and do 3 deep knee bends, the usual punishment for Indian school children, while others laughed. Another meeting was called the following afternoon to suggest a name for Baba's newly built room. A local devotee named Kaka Shahane suggested Agra Kuti, Primordial Hut, but Baba proposed the name Jhodpi Hut, which all seemed like, and so the King of Universe one-room stone cabin was accordingly christened. Another proposal was to name the 3 animals that were to be brought to Mehrabad soon. Daulat Might had presented Baba with the white horse that belonged to her daughter Mera. A white dog and a white bullock were also to be produced during the discussion. It was decided that the horse would be called Sufi, the bullock saint, and the dog Sadhu. In the afternoon, all the guests who had come to Ram's birthday departed from Mehrabad for their respective homes. Baba spent the evening singing bhajans with Adi and afterwards discussed the 2 types of muktas, liberated or realized human beings.
Thank you, Meher. Rosalie,
Well,
would you like to pick up?
There are 2 kinds of mukti, liberation. One is called Vida Mukti and the other Janma Mukti. King Janak, father of Sita, Ram's wife, was a Vida Mukta, which means that he was not in the least affected by any outward situation. He also had no feeling sensations regarding his body. Janak placed 1 foot in burning fire and the other in icy cold water, and did not feel either. Sai Baba was also a Vide Mukta. It is said that Sai would often use his bare hand as a ladle while serving a boiling dish of food. The deepest meaning of Janma Mukta is to remain emancipated from birth, like Ram, Krishna, or Christ. The Vide Mukta has one disadvantage. He cannot take upon himself the suffering of another. Suppose you have a severe headache. To relieve you of it, a Sadguru must suffer the same amount of agony. He must have a similar headache. But when the Vide Mukta has no outward feelings, how can he free anyone from a headache? How can he free anyone from anything when he does not feel the pain? How can he suffer for another being when he is unconscious of physical suffering? Adi then asked how such a being could be called a perfect master when he is not able to suffer for others. Baba replied, he can take upon himself the suffering of others, but in small portions. The conversation turned to the types of spiritually advanced souls, or Mahapurush, who after traversing the spiritual planes realize God and become perfect. Baba explained, the game of Atya Patya was played many centuries ago in India by rishis, ascetics, and munis, silent recluses, who invented the game to represent spirituality. The middle line, extending vertically end to end, represents Maya, and the other straight lines represent lust, anger, greed, etc. One type of Mahapurush who goes beyond lust, anger, and greed crosses over to the next side, meaning he realizes God and stays drowned in infinity. This type of realized person is of no direct help to others in gaining that which he has gained. Another type of Mahapurush.
Footnote that this type of Mahapurush is known as Brahmi Bhoot or Mazub.
Another type of Mahapurush is he who, crossing through all the lines, reaches the other side and returns to the original starting point, passing through all the lines once more. This going back is for others. So this one who returns is called a Salik, Sadguru, Kutub, who in the twinkling of an eye can take others to the goal. Thus, after emancipating himself from Maya, a Sadguru has again to involve himself in Maya to release others. As Swami Vivekananda says, He is the real guru who brings himself down to the level of his disciples. For example, suppose a pearl is lying hidden under a heap of filth. To take it out, one has to thrust his hands in it. Likewise, the Sadguru has to involve himself in the filth of illusion, but he is never soiled by it. The Mandali's physical labor continued the next day, centering on the bathroom building near the mess quarters, which the army had used as bathing rooms. One day, Baba found Padre and Ramju chatting idly for a few moments. Upset with them, Baba threw a stick he was holding at Padre, narrowly missing him. He then rebuked both men and told them to stop working. However, they resumed their work after a while. Later, in front of some of the other men, Padre showed his blistered palms to Baba, who remarked, "You people swear you are ready to give up your life for me, but blisters make you complain? This is not even the beginning of giving up your life, yet you whimper and cry. It is a sin to complain in this path where, for years on end, the body is cut up bit by bit, remaining wounded until it gives up the ghost. Seal your lips and let me kill you slowly, inch by inch. Bravery lies in this, not in showing me the blisters on your palms." But Padre's hands were swollen, and it was decided that he had to be taken to the Ahmednagar hospital to have his blisters treated. Rustam requested that Baba accompany them in the car. Adi said he would drive, and Baba immediately became displeased with him. Adi then voiced his anger at Baba. However, when they reached Ahmednagar, he asked for Baba's forgiveness and was pardoned. Padre's hands were treated, and he was kept in Ahmednagar to recuperate. In his absence, Ramju became the manager of Meherabad, taking over Padre's duties and awakening the Mandali at 5 each morning. Although Rustam was living with his family in Ahmednagar, he was under Baba's orders and was responsible for handling supply shipments to Meherabad. For some time, he failed to send the load of lime on schedule, and Baba became impatient as the work was delayed. On 17 April, he sent Nervous to Ahmednagar with instructions to fall on his knees before Rustam and say, "On behalf of Meher Baba, I salute you. Please send the chana cart." Nervous did it, and Rustam in turn told him, "Kindly offer my salutations to Meher Baba 20 times and tell him I was not negligent in sending the cart, since his orders to me was I should not hire a bullock cart, and our cart did not turn up in time. Rustam, however, soon sent another cart piled with lime to Mehrabad. Later that same day, Baba scolded his uncle Masaji for preparing more food than necessary. Masaji angrily shouted back, "I am fed up with this. If permitted, I am ready to leave Arangawan." Baba retorted, "If you don't find my words to your liking, it is better you do leave." Masaji answered, "I don't take your bitter words or your taunting to heart, but how am I to know if you are really serious or not when you say I am wasting food? If you mean what you say and if you understand this," Baba said, "then you've understood everything about me." Baba soon calmed, telling Masaji, "It's all right, you may stay." Padri, Gulmai, and Rustam came in the afternoon while the men were engaged in reciting the names of God. Gulmai had brought Baba's food as she had been doing for a few days. He ate only a little and distributed the rest to the mandali. A singing group came to Mehrabad from Kedgaon, a suburb of Ahmednagar, and presented a bhajan music program that lasted until midnight. Ramju broke out in a fever and Baba freed him from work. By 18 April 1924, repairs to the bathroom building were completed and installation of stone flooring to a veranda in front of Baba's jopti began. Upon inspection, Baba became displeased with Rustam for sending 2 loads of stone flooring in hired bullock carts and stormed over to the post office where the mandali were resting. He disrupted their relaxation, telling them, "If such things continue, I will leave Mehrabad and forsake all of you." Rustam knew why Baba was upset and showed his nervousness. In this way, he learned the lesson that the master did not like more money spent than was necessary. Ramju's high fever continued, and Baba applied eau de cologne to his forehead.
Okay, it's after 1:30 now, so I think we could end the
Yeah.
reading.